Good. Yesterday, we learned, actually, the last 4 days, we learned about what was the significance of Jacob's apparently meaningless taking a bunch of rocks and putting them under his head and making a pillar to God. And then he poured oil on top of it. And he said that if you take me back to the house of my father, then Hashem will be for me, for Elohim. And really, there's actually a summary of that, which we could do, but I don't think we will, because then we won't be able to finish this. So I'll just summarize it quickly. That the rocks that he put under his head were basically the letters that God creates the world from. The world is created from God's speech, and speech is composed of letters. So God's speech is what makes the world. And letters, as we know, have no meaning. Letters A, B, C, D, E. What is A, B, C, D, E? What does it mean? It means nothing. When you put it together with another letter, then it starts to have meaning. The same thing is God's creative power in the world, or even the world itself. If you don't know how to put it together properly, it has no meaning to it. So that's how the world seems to be totally meaningless. And Yaakov's job, the job of the Jewish people, is to make the world into a meaningful place. And the way that that's done is through the Torah. So that's what he says. He took the rocks, which that's the letters of creation, and he put them together, and he made one big pillar, unification, and he poured oil on top of it. That's the wisdom of the Torah. Pour oil on top of it. And then he said that if you will take me back to the house of my father, which the Rebbe said that refers to the Mashiach, Yitzchak. Yitzchak is the one who's going to bring Mashiach. Then Hashem, Yud Ke Vav Ke, will be, which is the highest aspect of God, will be for me, for Elohim, be the lowest aspect. In other words, this, what we think now, is the highest aspect of God. Then in the future, it's going to be a low aspect. We'll see so much higher than that. Godliness, that we never thought that there was such a reality like that. And so that's what the basically he did by putting all these rocks together. It was really the goal of creation. The goal of creation, to see what man really is and who we really are and why we're really here and how good the world really is, essentially good. And it'll be revealed what it was when God created the world. He said it was very good, and that man is in the image of God, and that God is infinitely close to us. We'll see all these things and we'll feel it. And that's the point of last week's, what we learned up to now about taking the rocks and putting them under his head, and etc. Unifying the world, taking every moment and every occurrence that happens to us in this world, every single instant of it is all part of this big plan. It's just rocks, just stones, in order to make from it a meaningful and beautiful house of God. Okay, here's another apparently meaningless thing, that Lavan had 2 daughters. Now, it's pretty interesting. I mean, if you learn in the Bible, you learn in the Torah. So there's all these, I mean, first of all, if you learn the 5 books of Moses, you don't really get too much out of it. There's a couple of sentences over there that maybe you can sort of squeeze some meaning out of it, like don't kill, don't steal, don't, but usually those sentences are misinterpreted. For instance, that don't steal in the 10 Commandments is not to kidnap. And the commandment and the prohibition from stealing, that comes from another place in the Torah, lo tignovu. But the idea of judges and things like that, there's not so religious. The Torah is not such a very religious book. You know, when it comes down to it, since you have to love God with all of your heart, but it doesn't explain what God really is. It doesn't explain what Abraham really believed in. Okay, so here's an example. Excuse me. Here's an example. Lavan had 2 daughters. Lavan had 2 daughters. Who are the daughters? They become the wives of Jacob. They give birth to the sons of Jacob. Jacob has his name changed. Before he meets up with Lavan, he has his name changed to Yisrael. So these become Bnei Yisrael. In other words, these are the mothers, the direct mothers of every single Jew in the world, converts included. So these are the mothers of all of the Jewish people, Rachel and Leah, two daughters. So it says, Rachel and Leah, they are the two daughters. What has this got to do with us right now? Well, there are mothers, there are the progenitors of the Jewish people. That's pretty significant. Says the Rebbe, yeah, but there's something much more significant. Because as the mothers and the offspring, the progenitors, whatever it's called, of the Jewish people, that was a long time ago. That happened a long time ago. And this story happened 4,000 years ago. So that's a long time. And what does it mean to us right now? That Rachel and Leah, the Torah is a book that's written by God for right now. God is creating us right now. It's not just he wrote a book. That was the first book that he wrote in a long series. Any author writes several books. This was his bestseller. This is the others didn't go over so good. This is the only book that God wrote. This is it, the Torah. There is no other book. He wrote every single word, every single letter of the Torah is directly God writing it. That's what's called Torah Shebechtav, the written words of the Torah. And sometimes the written words of the Torah, they come through the prophets and through this, but that's the written Torah. Okay, so it says in the written Torah that Lavan had two daughters. Now explains in Chassidut also that Lavan, even though here it doesn't talk about it so much, but Lavan was a really bad guy. And was a bad guy, even though he was here we have all these family polar opposites, right? We have Yaakov versus Esav, same mother, same father, opposite. The same thing as Abraham and Terach and Nahor. And here we have the Rivka as a brother, and his name is Lavan. And Lavan, he has two daughters. Lavan has two daughters. Two daughters, and they are Leah and Rachel. Leah and Rachel. Now, Lavan is a bad guy, and Leah and Rachel come out to be really good. It says that in his source, Lavan is really very, very good. Lavan is white. The upper whiteness, it says, a tremendously high level of spirituality. In any case, he has two daughters. And why do I say this? Because the purpose of the Jewish people is somehow or other to transform this world into being good. Okay. Lavan has two daughters. Leah and Rachel are the letters of thought and the letters of speech. God's thought and God's speech. And correspondingly, our thought and our speech were created in the image of God. She'em, that they represent Alma Discasia, the worlds that are concealed, like thought is concealed, right? Nobody knows what we're thinking. You don't know what other people are thinking. Alma Disgalia, and the revealed world. That's like speech. Speech, when a person speaks, you know what he's saying. You know what's coming out of his mouth. Maybe you don't know what's behind it. That's the thought that's concealed. Okay, so this gives the ability of the Jewish people to correct, to make order out of all of these worlds that God created, this physical world and the spiritual worlds. Now you can say, what do I care about the spiritual worlds? The physical world is the whole main thing. But the fact is, if you think about it for a moment, that the physical world is the main thing. Yes, it's true, but it's totally ruled by the spiritual worlds. All of a sudden, somebody gets an idea in his mind, I'm going to conquer the whole world. I'm going to conquer the whole world. And the idea spreads to other people, right? To other people. Let me just see something over here. One minute. I should have done this beforehand. Yeah, this has to be a little bit louder. There we go. Fix this. Okay. It must be an internal conversation over here. Here we go. So thought and speech. So thought and speech. So thought, that's all the upper worlds. So we Jews, we have the power to also fix up and correct all the upper worlds so that no one gets ideas in their mind. Let's take over the world. Let's, blow up who knows what. So that's the spiritual worlds. We have the ability to fix this up. That is the inyan of Artzot HaChaim. That's what's called that the lands of life. Artzot, the lands of life. It's plural. What type of lands are there? Two types of lands. Well, first of all, we know that there is Jerusalem in the physical world, and there's Jerusalem, what's called Yerushalayim Shalamayla. There's Jerusalem in the spiritual worlds. And there is also the land of Israel, physical and the spiritual land of Israel. Just 1 minute, I just want to look at this up. One word over here. Oh, base. Here it is. Second. Base. Excuse me, 1 minute. Okay, it's a sentence. All right. Here it is. Here it is. 1 minute. Excuse me. All right, can't find it. Okay. Two lands. Very says two lands. The time when the Holy Temple was standing, in the time when there was the Holy Temple, these two levels, Meirim, they shined in the land of Israel. God was revealed, and all the aspects of God that are now concealed were also revealed. But the main thing was Rachel. The God was revealed in the world. There was a holy temple. There were prophets. On the surface, everything was wonderful. It was holy. Because thought was in speech. So in other words, the world, which is God's speech, was crying out the oneness of God. The land of Israel was called the Holy Land. The person would go to the land of Israel and he would feel that there's a creator. And the closer you got to the Holy Temple, the more you would feel it. But just coming into the land of Israel, you would already feel there's a creator to the world. This is not a land like any other place. This is a land that shows the purpose of the whole creation. So everything was revealed. And God's revelations, the revealed aspect of God was revealed. Well, because the Rachel is the level of speech. This is revelation. Therefore, then there was Be'eretz Israel, there was big revealed godliness. When there was the Holy Temple, there was tremendous genius people, Bale Ruach HaKodesh, that had what is called divine inspiration, Holy Spirit. The Nevi'im, there were prophets. Like Rashi says about Yonah and Yechezkel. She'ein Nevuah Shava, the Shora, that prophecy only comes in the land of Israel. It says when Yonah, the story of Jonah and the whale. So Jonah ran away from Israel because he didn't want prophecy. He got prophecy to, God told him to go to the Jewish people and tell them to repent. And he didn't want to go. He knew the Jews would make trouble. And so he ran outside of Israel where there wouldn't be prophecy. That was the reason they went out and they got thrown over the ship, got thrown off into the whale swallowed up. The same thing as Yechezkel, when he went outside of Israel, the prophecy wasn't the same. Ubafrat, and especially in the base of Mikdash, in the Holy Temple, for sure, there was revealed godliness, Ashar Shechina, in the Holy of Holies. There was the Urim V'Tumim, there was the breastplate of the high priest that would give prophecies. Avodas HaKorbanos, there was, then you could make sacrifices. You could take an animal and make the animal holy. The animal could serve God. They bring it on the altar. Shaya Yored, there would come down fire from above. Take a sheep, a cow, whatever, and fire would actually come down from above on the altar and burn up the sacrifices. They also had to bring fire from below, but that was because it was a commandment. The fire would come down. So then, in the days when there was a holy temple, that Rachel and Leah were revealed in the land of Israel, and the main thing was Rachel. In other words, God was revealed. You saw that God was creating the world. You saw that. Which is not the case, which is not the case after the destruction of the temple. Shagalu, the Jewish people were exiled, V'golta Imayim, and the Shekhinah went with them. God's presence says it went into exile with the Jewish people. Then this level of Rachel, the revelation of God, it was exile. Ba'ayin Sarim, what's called the 70 chieftain angels. Now it says that the non-Jews of the world, they have a lot of religions. The religions are very spiritual, and they also sense that there's God, but they can't sense God directly. Just for instance, by the non-Jews, there's no such thing as commandments. They don't have command. All these religions, there's a lot of religions in the world, and all the religions have their, the good points to them. And the main good point is that they worship something other than themselves. But none of them have commandments, because commandments is the whole idea of God revealing himself in physical things, in the physical world. The physical world somehow becomes holy. When the time there was the holy temple, all of Israel was holy. We saw a whole total different type of godliness in the world. Of course, there were also bigger sinners back then, because people have free will. So as big as the revelation was, the bigger the sins could be. And for the very simple reason, let's say we just finished learning about Yaakov and Esav, and Esav was bad and Yaakov was good, and Yitzchak wanted to fix up Esav. That's what it says in Chassidut. So he wanted to give him a big blessing. And Yaakov knew through his mother, through Rivka, that if he would give him a big blessing, that he would only make it worse. That Esav would only get worse. Or he would go totally insane, but he would make it worse. So that was like what the land of Israel was. The land of Israel was like this big blessing that Yitzchak wanted to give. In some ways, it only made things worse. In some ways, there was big idolatry back then, like open idolatry. They worshipped the golden calf. You know that in the first temple, Yerovam ben Nevat, he convinced the Jewish people in the 10 tribes in the north to worship the golden calf. It says in the Torah, the golden calf is idolatry. It says in the Torah that God doesn't want it. They worshipped it. The golden calf for like 250 years until so there was good was revealed, but also there was free will. A person could go against it. But nevertheless, when the Holy Temple was here, godliness, God was revealed in the world. Everyone knew there was a creator. Everyone knew there was a purpose for every detail of the creation. Everyone knew that he was here for a purpose. Everybody knew it. Everyone that was in Israel, all the Jews. And Israel was the Holy Land. Okay, Israel is still the Holy Land, right? Now, do you feel it? Almost not at all. Sometimes people go to the Western Wall. They feel a little something unusual over there. They have in Jerusalem, they call it the Messiah syndrome. People go into the Messiah, all of a sudden they feel, I'm alive, I must be the chosen one, right? I am special, I am different from everybody else. So a little bit they feel godliness and it becomes confused. In the time of the Holy Temple, Rachel, God's speech was revealed in the world. You knew that it was God speaking. But nowadays, when the temple was destroyed, so this level of God's speech that you feel it's God, it doesn't shine at all. Comparable to the revelation that was in the time of the temple. Shahaya Dibur, that God's speech was revealed. Everyone felt that the world, which is God's speech, is God's. God is creating it. Which is not the case now. Kativ, it says, the Jewish people are like a rachel, also means a sheep. Sheep, like a sheep in front of the shearers. Ne'alama, it becomes quiet. If you've ever seen a sheep when it's being sheared, you ever see that? Sometimes there's the sheep shearing contests they have. And it's quite amazing, really. I mean, and there's people, they grab onto the sheep and they shear it, right? They have a shear with the sheep, and the sheep is totally quiet. When the sheep is held, it doesn't struggle, it doesn't do anything. Only when they release it. So it says it's like a sheep, when it's being sheared, it's quiet. That's the Jewish people. The Jewish people, they're in they're scattered around the world. They have their talents and everything, but they're being sheared by the world. The world takes how do you say, the fleece from the Jewish people, their wisdom, their talent, their abilities. There's the Jewish comedians, there's Jewish scientists, and there's Jewish philosophers, and there's Jewish this, and there's Jewish the actors, and but the Jewish part of them is quiet. The Jewish part of them is quiet. They deny There's this whole list of actors that, did you know that this guy was a Jew, this guy was a Jew, right? They try to keep it quite as much as possible. They change their name, they make a nose job, they do this, whatever. So this Judaism, the fleece, the Jewish people are being sheared, right? They benefit the whole world, but they're quiet. They keep their Judaism quiet. Now the service we have to do, serving God, was not like it was in the temple, directly serving God. Now we have to what's called birurim. Nowadays we have to believe in God, and we have to use the world in a way as though God was revealed, like it wasn't when the Holy Temple was here. That's called birurim. God purposely conceals himself, and we have to look for him. We have to do everything we can to look for him. That's called birurim. We make use of the concealment. In this case, like a father that conceals himself from his child, right? So the concealment is a good thing because it makes his child all of a sudden desire more. His father, he wants to find his father. Daddy, where are you? Right? So his father enjoys the sudden devotion and longing and lust that the child has for his father. Same thing, the exile. It brings about a greater desire, an inner desire for God, and everything we do in the world reflects this. We do the commandments, we do this because we're longing for a total revelation of God. Some people, they say they want the total revelation after they die and the world to come. Okay, the Hasidut comes to tell us that you don't have to wait for that long. That first of all, in the world to come after you die, the revelation is not as great as it will be in this world as a result of our commandments. But suffice it to say, nowadays, however you want to take it, godliness is concealed. Rachel is concealed. Rachel is like a sheep. Rachel means sheep. It's like a sheep that's being sheared. She's quiet. Nevertheless, Nishar, there is shining in the land of Israel, bechinas Leah. Rachel went away, but Leah, which is God's thought, this is a higher level than Rachel. Okay, now it gets a little bit, we have to understand what's going on over here. So we're saying the hidden aspect of God is dominant. So if it's dominant, then it's not revealed. So it's a hidden aspect of God is more dominant. So then it's revealed. I mean, that's not hidden anymore. I'm sorry. Then it's revealed. So let's see what this means. Nowadays in the land of Israel, since the temple was destroyed, it's possible to receive a higher level of awareness of God than in the time of the temple. Nowadays, the thought, God's thought, the concealed aspect of God is more available. We'll see what this means. Just like thought, which is spiritual, and it's higher than speech. That the thought of God is not in exile. Rachel is called the mem petucha. Rachel is similar to an open mem, that there is an opening, and it comes. The external forces can nurture from it in the time of exile, which is not the case the level of men stuma, the final mem, which is closed. And this final mem, this is the concealed aspect of God. It's concealed. V'shem u'shorish Leah, that's the source of Leah. So it's almost like, let me give you an example. I don't know if this is a good example, but I give you the example. A person, which would you rather have? Like I say, a bird in the hand or two in the bush. Would you rather have $10,000 in your hand or $10 million in the bank? $10 billion. $10 billion in the bank. Which would you rather have? So a lot of people say $10 billion in the bank. Well, I mean, that means that I'm rich, but I can't use the money. But you are rich. You are rich. And you've got that money. And one day it's going to be, I'm going to get it when? It's concealed. I can't tell you, but it's yours. It's yours. $10 billion is in the bank. So technically, I'm a rich person. I'm not poor. But I haven't got it in my hand. Let's say they say, okay, listen, you can take a little, every week you can take out $100. A little tiny bit, but you're a billionaire. As soon as you come in the bank, every day, oh, hello, Mr. Groyce. Hello, welcome to the bank. How are you feeling today, Mr. Groyce? Listen, I'd like to take out all the money. I'm sorry, we can't do that. We can only let you take out 100. But as soon as we get the word, So if so, that's what it is in Israel now. In Israel, we feel now you can feel more the richness of what it is to be a Jew, but it's not revealed. You don't feel it in a revealed way. Because Shehu Alma Diskasiyat, now it's found in the land of Israel, it's concealed. Therefore, there's no revealed godliness in the land of Israel, compared to the revelation that was when the Holy Temple was here. Nevertheless, at tzaddikim gedolim, there are big tzaddikim here. Asher be'eretz yochlim lasik, they can grasp now in the land of Israel, tremendously high ideas, much higher than the tzaddikim that were in the time of the Holy Temple. Yeah, here we'll see an example. Like for instance, Arizal, for instance, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria. He wrote, this was like 400 or 500 years ago. That he could understand at tremendously high levels, even the greatest tzaddikim in the previous generations. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai did it also the same thing. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was right after the destruction of the temple. Having to understand what it says. Okay, let's take it. That's what we have now. Now we have in the land of Israel tremendously high aspect of God, which is called God's thought, but it's concealed. Right? It's something like having $10 billion in the bank, but you can't take the money out. But you know that you're rich. You know that you're rich. So therefore, in the time of the Holy Temple, where they could take out every week, let's say $10,000 from the bank, or everybody was a millionaire. So they were millionaires, they felt godly. But now everybody's a billionaire, a multi-billionaire. But you just can't take the money out. So therefore, here in this case, we're talking about Judaism. So in the time of the temple, you felt your Judaism, you felt there was God, you felt there was a creator. Nowadays, it's much deeper, but it's concealed. In the revealed way, it's not here. I always said, this is what a thought of mine. In the time of the temple, it's exactly the opposite of now. In the time of the temple, on the surface, everything was wonderful, but underneath, everything was sort of rotten. There was Gilei Araya Shvichas Damim. They were doing bad things, but on the surface, there were prophets. There was the Holy Temple, but underneath, it was bad. And God got angry. He sent prophets all the time to tell the people to change their ways, and they didn't. So he destroyed the outer part. Don't fool yourselves. He destroyed the outer part. But nowadays, I think it's exactly the opposite. Nowadays, on the surface, in Israel, things are terrible. There's missionaries all over the place, and they have these weird, parades, whatever they're called, prides, and totally against, and they give money to our enemies. This whole thing that just happened now was because Israel supported them. We gave them land, and we're going to continue giving them. So they're supporting three things that Jews are supposed to give their lives for, and not to do. They do on the surface, but underneath, everything is starting to heal up. Everything, all of a sudden, last night I performed in front of a bunch of soldiers. It was anyway, and they were not religious soldiers. One or two of them were, and I was speaking to them, and they were saying that a couple of them, they put on tefillin. They're starting to put on tefillin every day, and a couple of them, they were brought up like in kibbutz. These people were totally on the surface, nothing to do with Judaism. Suddenly they feel that there's, they feel that God is close to them, that God is protecting them. The Jewish people are special. They have a special job in the world, special. So underneath, everything is starting to heal up. So that's the idea of Leah. God's thought, the inside is more revealed. So therefore, you can, even though there's on the surface of things seem pretty dire in the land of Israel, but underneath, things are really, there's great revelations underneath in thought. Like, for instance, the Arizal, he understood ideas that no one else understood before him in the secrets of godliness and the secrets of creation. Yaakov, he understood, but almost Diskasia. Yaakov had both, two wives. He understood all of these worlds. I'm sorry. Now we have to understand what it says, Kisnu Leah, that Yaakov loved Rachel, but he hated Leah. Why did he hate Leah? Leah is the concealed aspect of God. What's wrong with that? Yaakov certainly understood what Leah was, the hidden aspects of God, Why did he hate her? It says, is Yaakov is called Briach HaTichon. Yaakov is called the center pillar, the center bolt. In the tabernacle, there was one bolt that held all of the boards together, and it went says from one end to the other, went all the way around the boards, and it held them all together. There's a briach mina katzeh la katzeh. It went from one end to the other. That's Yaakov. Says that Abraham, he was the aspect of kindness. That's like the top bolts, and the bottom bolts, that was like Yitzchak. He was Gevura, and from him, from Abraham came Yishmael, and from Yitzchak came Esav. But Yaakov was totally pure. From one end to the other, Perish, Shehu Mamshich, he draws down, or Ein Sof, the infinite light of God, Mina Katzeh Elyon, from the upper highest level, namely the Kab Habokea Halal. This is like the source of God's speech that comes from God into the lowest aspects of the world. That's Yaakov. The ability to bring godliness from the deepest concealed levels to the most revealed. That's from what's called Keter, God's crown, to bring that Lamata below. That's Yud Ekev. Yaakov is Yud. That's the first level of God, letter of God's name. To the Ekev means the heels. Yaakov had the ability to reveal godliness even in the highest aspects of God in the lowest places. Cain also, that's what we say in our prayers, Vehanora. We say in our prayers, anybody who prays in the morning, there's a prayer called Shmon Esrei. We pray 3 times a day. And it says, Kel HaGodol, HaGibor, Vehanora. That God is a Godol, big, that corresponds to Abraham. HaGibor, that God is powerful, that corresponds to Yitzchak. And Vehanora, and the awesome one, Vav, this unites, that's Yaakov, that's Tiferet, it unites and joins Chesed, which is Abraham, and Gevura, which is Yitzchak. Al Yedei, by means of Amshachas, by means of drawing down, Ha'ayin, this level of ayin, namely the essence of godliness, bittul, total surrender to God, that's Yaakov. Yaakov is total surrender to the essence of the Creator in this physical world. That's the thing of Yaakov, to reveal. And everything that, all the blessings that Yaakov drew into the world, this is by means of, from his essence, he wanted to bring it down to the lowest level. That's Yaakov. Abraham, so to speak, fixed up the spiritual worlds. Yitzchak fixed up the physical worlds. He dug wells, and Yaakov joined them together. Right? Abraham began Judaism, that there is God. Yitzchak dug wells in the world, prepare the world for God. And Yaakov drew godliness into the world. Hainu bebechinas malchus. He drew down the kingship of God into the as Alma Discalion, to be revealed in the world. That's why it says that Yaakov loved also Rachel, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. Because all of his desire was Liot Giloi Or Ein Sof, to be revealed godliness berachel in this physical world, God's speech. By means of this, Yochel HaKol, that everyone would be able to receive, which is not the case of the concealed worlds. The concealed worlds are wonderful, but that's not the goal. Going to heaven, doing all the commandments and being a good person and going to heaven, that's wonderful, but that's not the goal. The goal is Rachel, to bring godliness into the world. And therefore, that's why it says that Yaakov, he kissed Rachel. Why did he kiss Rachel? Al derech shenekud, like it says v'yishakeu, like it says that when Esav met up with Yaakov, he also kissed him. And it says, but his kisses that he kissed him were, you have to understand what was going on. There's little dots on the top of it that says there's something concealed over here. Also, when he kissed Rachel, there was something concealed. Behind Chabad, that the inner aspect of godliness, Chesed, Chachma, Bina, and Das, which that's the Zivug Neshikin, which that's called a constant connection to God, is the Beko Rucho Barucho connection of spirit to spirit, like a kiss. Shaboin Mipinim is that it comes from inner love. A kiss is a sign of inner love and affection. So he loved, according to this, he loved Leah, the spiritual worlds, the heavenly goodness of God, but more he loved Rachel. He wanted to bring it to be revealed. This level he drew into Rachel, namely this deep inner connection to God, the kiss. It says in the Song of Songs that says when Mashiach comes, God will kiss us with the kisses of his mouth. Nowadays we have the Torah. In the future, we'll feel the secrets of the Torah, everyone. And that's what Yaakov began. Yaakov, Rachel is to reveal God in the world. Leah is how God is concealed. And Yaakov wanted to, both of them, he wanted the concealed aspects of God, but mostly he wanted to bring God into the physical world. That's what it says. That's what Yaakov said to Lavan after Yaakov discovered that he had been tricked and that Lavan gave him Leah first. He says, I'll serve. So he worked seven years and for Rachel. 7 years for Rachel, and Lavan tricked him. So he said, okay, I'll work for 7 years. Afterwards, he says, I'll work for 7 years again. For Rachel, you're Rachel Bitcha Katana. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. This is the first time. He said, I'll work 7 years for Rachel, your youngest daughter. Yaakov said, Ki Lavan. This is the love of Lovan Elyon. That's what I said before. Lovan is the aspect of the upper whiteness of God. Makar Chasid Sadim, the source of God's love and kindness. Shekulu Rachamim, it's pshut, simple love and mercy of God. That's how God created the world, right? From just giving. That's how he creates it now. The lay small of Hayatika, there's no left side, there's no severity in this, the highest aspect of Lovan. In Atik, this is just pure love. God just creates. That's why he creates bad things also, because he doesn't make any calculations. That's where Lovan comes from. Rak Lamata, but when this aspect, when Lovan comes down into the physical world, but Lovan Gashmi, and the physical person called Lovan, then it becomes bad. There's in the book called Derech Mitzvotecha, so it explains over there what is the source of all these forbidden sexual relationships. That in their source, they're really very holy. The problem is that this world is not a place for those things. It just comes out to be bad. So you can't say I'm doing it spiritually. That's what, I mean, we shouldn't even mention his name. That's what Shabbatai Tzvi said he wanted to do, to bring these everything that's forbidden in this world has really a very high spiritual source. And he said, we'll do the sins and I'll elevate them. And of course, he was totally wrong. He was a terrible apostate. But nevertheless, Lovan in his source is really good. When it was good that could not be manifested in this world. When it came physical, then it was bad. Nevertheless, it says, Kula hafach Lovan tahor. It says by Matzora that if a person has tzorat, in Hebrew it's translated as spiritual leprosy. So white is a sign of impurity. But if the person's whole body becomes white, then the person is pure. It's a sign of purity. Even in a nega, even in this impure sign. So on Lavan, it says, Vayashkem Lavan baboker. It says that Lavan woke up early in the morning. Shebakol Yom, that every day, mitkaber, there is strengthened and drawn down this tremendous kindness of God, this whiteness of God, the pure goodness and love of God for the world is aroused every morning. And the Jews are supposed to bring this into the world. The Jews are Yaakov. Yaakov was Yisrael. That's what it says, that Yaakov kissed Rachel, that Yaakov took from this high aspect of godliness and he brought it down, a kiss, which is a deep connection, he brought it down to Rachel. And afterwards he kissed all of his sons and his daughters. Shenimshach b'kol pertzufei hatzilus. It was drawn, this love of God is drawn down into all of the aspects of the spiritual worlds, feminine and male, masculine and feminine. Masculine is usually the right side, and the kind side of kindness, and feminine is the side of severity. Nevertheless, that's the job of Yaakov. Yaakov's thing was to do what Adam was supposed to have done. To work on the world, fix up the world. And afterwards, Lavan, that's what it says, that Lavan, after he caught up to Yaakov, I'm sorry. It's just 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. Wait, give me a minute. No. 1 second. Excuse me. I'm sorry. It's not so. This is Lavan. Lavan, he met up with Yaakov. He ran after Yaakov. He wanted to kill him. He ran after him. And an angel appeared to him, told him, don't do it. And it ended up that Lavan came down to the world and he kissed his sons and his daughters. Namely, it was drawn down all of his children to all of the parts of him. Lavan, this upper level of godliness, Lavan, he was brought down into all these lowest levels. Of course, this was brought about by Yaakov. Yaakov was the one who married his daughters and gave birth to these children. And afterwards, Lavan went back to his place above, very, very high. And Yaakov continued on his way to draw this level of Lovan, Elyon, this upper whiteness, this upper kindness, below, into Rachel Bitcha Katana in the physical world. Therefore, it says that Rachel was impotent. Rachel didn't have any children. Why? Because to reveal the aspect of God in the physical world, Dibur, the world of Bria, Yetzir, and Asiya, those are the coming down to the physical world. It's impossible to be in a way. I'm sorry. It's impossible. I'm sorry. It's impossible to give birth. It's too low. Gile Bria, Yetzir, and Asiya, namely, Hari and Nivroim, the creations, they're separate. The EF Charlie Galot, you can't reveal them. This upper level of Lavan, it's too high. And Nishkolel, like we said before. So it's true that, like he says, even though that it says that Rachel represents the revealed worlds, but in order to really reveal it in a complete way that she could give birth herself, this is very, very difficult. That's the difference between everything that you do, teaching a person, impressing a person, and giving birth. Giving a birth is a very, very high revelation. Man is put into the world in order to give, to contribute, to build, to add something to the world, everyone. And it's not that difficult, for a person to learn to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be a this. So you learn, if you're intelligent, you can learn those things. It's not a painful experience, but giving birth is painful, and it's also very dangerous. But you might think, why? I mean, it's a commandment to give birth, and God wants us to give birth. And not only that, women are built to give birth. They have a uterus, they have this to give birth. That's the reproductive system is a big gift from God. Why is it so difficult? It's because that's what God. I mean, there's some things that give birth, for instance, is very difficult. So that there can be all the potential, the Torahs in the world, and etc. But to actually do the commandments and actually do constantly and bring godliness into the world, even though everything is all prepared, it's very difficult. In the time of the temple, it was much easier. There was the holy temple. Godliness was manifested in a building. You go to the building, you feel there was a creator. That's why Yaakov loved Rachel, because that was his goal. His goal was to bring godliness into the physical world, to the world of speech. About Leah, which that's God's thought, Yolda, she gave birth. She gave birth to 6 children. Shemus Spheros of Atzilut. This is the aspects of Atzilut themselves. In other words, she gave birth to the 6 children because her giving birth was only in the spiritual. These were only spiritual aspects. That was the source of the tribes, was in the world of Atzilut. Therefore they're called Shiftei Yudke. Yehuda, like it says, all the tribes that are born, we'll see, this is going to be next week, we'll learn about this. They all represent aspects of revealed godliness. Ruvain, it says, is Chachma, or God's kindness. Shimon is God's Gavura. Yehuda says, Apam Odeh, I will give thanks to God. Bittul, surrender. These are all aspects of godliness only in what's called God's thought. Reuven, Shimon, the seeing, hearing. This is also above God's speech. These are all levels of God's thought. That's what Leah did. Leah, so to speak, prepared the way. But she didn't reveal godliness in the world. Even Levi, which this is the idea of connection, apam yilaveh. This is only born from thought. Like we can see clearly, Bamishu Baal Machshav, a person that thinks all the time, is a person that thinks he's not connected to the world. That's the aspect of Levi. Machmas Gadol, because of his tremendous connection. So all of these aspects that Leah, which is the world of thought, gave birth to, this is the potential in all the Jewish people. But Leah, Rachel's whole thing was to give actual. Therefore, Rachel gave birth to Yosef, and Yosef saved the whole world. Yosef was able to live in Egypt, which was the most licentious and debauched place in the world. Mitzrayim, it says the lowest place spiritually and ethically in the world was Egypt in those days. It was just totally wanton, the land of Egypt. And Yosef was able to go there and actually convince everyone to circumcise themselves. He changed the whole place. He was not affected by the place, even though he was in prison over there for 12, 13 years. So Yosef, because Yosef was the son of Rachel, and Rachel's thing is revelation, even in the physical world, to hold on to godliness, which is not the case. Leah is potential godliness. Like we said, $100 billion, but it's all in the bank. You can't take it out. Like it says in the Midrash, but over the Chaya Rabbah, I'll have to look that up. I'm sorry, I didn't look it up. Thoughts. There's stories about this also in Chassidus, that he's so deeply engrossed in thought that he was not connected to the world. That's Levi. Bekay and also Gabi, and also the same with Rabbah. It says the Havi Mayan Bishmaita says that Rabbah would, when he would be learning, he would be impervious to the world. The world wouldn't have any connection. That's the aspect of Levi. And therefore, therefore, from Levi came Moses. Then Moses is what's called pay. He couldn't speak because Moses was spiritual. That's the thing of Levi, the world of thought, God's thought, like Leah. And he was so attached to God. Loya Yochel, he was not able to give over. Shubachin is a dibur, to speech. The main difference between Iskasha is the connection of Levi, which is total surrender, and Yehuda, which is also surrender. That Yehuda is also this thing of surrender to God. Levi and Yehuda were both sons of Leah. And we're saying that's the world of thought. And Levi is attachment to God, and Yehuda also represents attachment to God, surrender to God. Yehuda, this is the level of bittul in a revealed way. Like we say, Modi Manachtulach, and revealed surrender to God. And that's Yehuda. And Levi, of a Levi, that's the level of a deep inner attachment to God. And a way, even though externally you can't see this revealed at all, like it says, like a bittul of the Tzava Shamayim, like all of the heavens, they're all bowing down to God, but we don't see it. The angels, it's not a thing that's physical. They bow, it's spiritual. Okay, so what's the Rebbe saying? The difference between Rachel and Leah, Rachel and Leah. Rachel is God being revealed in the world, like it was in the time of the first temple. To a certain degree in the time of the second temple also. God was revealed in the world. The world was revealed godliness, which is not the case in Leah. Leah was concealed godliness. And therefore, Yaakov loved Rachel because he wanted to reveal God in the world more than Leah. So it says, after Leah gave birth to 6 children, she stopped giving birth, that she could not bring any more. She filled up all the aspects of Atzilut, the spiritual, the highest spiritual world, and that's it. She couldn't give birth anymore. We'll talk about Yisachar and Zvulun. They were children afterwards. And tomorrow, God willing, we'll try to finish this on Friday. Now let's learn the Devar Malchut. 1 second.